Taking a look at the captive audience I have here, just want to say that possibly for the majority of you, this is going to be a history lesson. But I guarantee that you will have this conversation one day when you get to be my age. Being a child of the 1980s, I hold that time period in great regard. I often think, man, I wish they would invent a time machine where I could just go back and not have to be so responsible. The closest thing that they have to that is maybe a Sony Walkman, a cassette tape inside. Just sit there and play some old songs, and close your eyes and you go back. But I had to grow up a little bit, and I was a young adolescent in the 1990s. And that was a pretty good decade too. So people my generation often like to compare it to. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to do something about this. I'm going to settle once and for all which was the better decade between the 1980s and the 1990s. And by doing this, I'm looking at some quantifiable categories, criteria. Looking at the two decades, I'm going to judge them by world-impacting events. Not all of them, mind you, just a few key ones where you can gauge them against each other and see how it impacts and shapes the world we live in today. We're going to look at the music of the time, some of the fashions, some of the sports, and definitely the fads that were taking place during that time frame. So without further ado, we'll jump into that first category. World impacting events. Now, taking a look at all of you, you all were just a glimmer in your parents' eye when all this stuff happened. And I am playing the willful role of high school history teacher for the next 4 to 5 minutes. Take a look. In the 1980s, you had the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster, which signified a time where we were the best, we still are the best country on the planet, but especially in the arena of space exploration, until this fateful day where we sent 7 astronauts, one of them being a school teacher, the first civilian ever sent into space. And 72 seconds into the flight, it exploded, grounding our space program, our mighty nation's space program, for an astounding 38 months. Meantime, Soviets, our big enemies at the time, I'm sure they were sad, but definitely jump on the opportunity to try and capitalize on that. But speaking of Soviets, we also had the Cold War. If you don't know what the Cold War is, basically, in a nutshell, Russia and the United States stockpiled weapons to the point where we had so many that if somebody hit the button to launch one, the other country was going to hit the button to launch one, and it would be the end of the world as we know it. And a kind of a funny story, when I was in elementary school, we used to sit at these desks. Probably not the same desks that you sat in school, but these desks where you lift up the top and put stuff inside the desk, all your contraband, little notes that you would write, because we didn't have phones that we could text. But this desk, we actually would get underneath it for nuclear bomb drills because this desk would protect you from any shock wave flying at 700 miles an hour from ground zero and let you continue on with your day with nuclear fallout, leveled cities and whatnot. Which also led to the fall of the Berlin Wall. The Berlin Wall is a physical representation of the Iron Curtain. Basically the dividing point between capitalism and communism. Free people and not so free people. It was a pretty heavy time. Grew up in it, but I loved it. 1990s, advent of the internet. America Online was the first company to package the internet for consumption to the general public. You've got mail. The first time that you can chat with other people using your fingers to process ideas. It was obviously it was a pretty big deal. If you think about it, just last week, our internet went down on base. What'd you do in your office? You didn't know what you were doing. You're asking if you can go home. That's how big of an advent that was. Gulf War. We were, the mightiest nation on earth. And aside from the politics that were involved with that, it showed that logistically, tactically, militarily, we can go to any nation on a moment's notice and deliver pain. Warheads on foreheads. And we did it in 48 hours flat. And it was the first time that we got to look at terrorism. And sure, 9/11, it was definitely the cornerstone moment in our lives. But Oklahoma City bombing, World Trade Center, it was attacked. It was the first time that we actually had to take terrorism and make it part of our lives. Important stuff, but it's not always so heavy. What makes the 80s so awesome was that if you look at the musicians here, chances are even you know who these guys are. And back then it says, these are icons. These are icons that drove the music industry. But if we look over to the 1990s, sure, they're iconic as well, but in a different kind of way. The power shifted to the artists. Artists like Nirvana pretty much slayed the dinosaur that was hair metal, because people were tired of the excess of the 80s. They were tired of it. They wanted something true, real, angry. Artists like Tupac. He's a little bit of an icon, you can say that. And then, obviously, NSYNC. What is the 90s without NSYNC? That ushered in the era of the boy bands. I'll save my comments for that until the end of the presentation. Fashion. 80 was all about excess. Big times, big hair. Everybody had it. Members only jackets. We're not sure exactly what organization that they were members of, but they had this cool jacket that said members only on it, that signified, I'm cool. And neon, you saw it from a mile away. You probably still see it today. And so some facets of the 80s are coming back. In the 90s you got grunge. Yeah, grunge. A lot of plaid, a lot of not washing your hair. Nobody has time for that. Hip hop, baggy clothes, and the Rachel. The Rachel was such a popular woman's hairstyle that you still see facets of it today. Still there. Sports, 1980s. Did I mention that we hated the Russians in the 1980s? And how we probably made our biggest statement against them is the Miracle on Ice, when the United States hockey team took out the Russians. And it was a huge, huge event. First time that a pro football team had a top 10 single. They released a rap song called We Are the Bears Shuffling Crew. If you haven't heard it, YouTube it. It's awesome. And the Boston Red Sox were trying to do away with a curse that they haven't won a World Series in forever. And they were almost there until Bill Buckner, playing first base, let a seemingly innocent line drive grounder go through his legs and let the 1986 New York Mets win the World Series. Crazy stuff, but an awesome decade for sports. In the 1990s, Michael Jordan dominated the decade. And we are still resonating on it today. Shoes. We're still talking about, he's the Michael Jordan of this. I'm the Michael Jordan of personnel. Yes, we still revere this man even today. And another revered man, Mike Tyson. Biting the ear of Holyfield. If you remember that, you might be a little kid when you do. Right? Took a bite out of it, spit it out onto the boxing ring. And the Wunderkind, Carrie Strug, United States gymnast, with her little wrapped up ankle. In order for the United States women to win gold, she limped up on her ankle, ran up to the vault, did a whatever that movement is, and landed spot on, got a 10. You couldn't have written a better ending for the United States than that. Also very key. Quick little look at fads. Rubik's Cube. I remember as a kid, I mastered not solving the Rubik's Cube, but breaking it apart and putting the pieces back in place. I'm pretty good at doing that, breaking it down and putting it together pretty fast. If it wasn't that, it was the stickers. The Karate Kid, I was walking around, kicking people in the face all the time, doing the crane. And Pac-Man, arcade. People don't hang out in arcades anymore, but to assert your dominance at video games, you would physically walk into a giant room that had video games, put your quarter up on the machine, and then stand there for electronic supremacy. It was the best of times. Going forward a little bit, the Beanie Babies. We actually had that one, and I told my wife, we gotta sell it, we gotta sell it. It's worth $475 on eBay, and she didn't want to sell it. It's kind of like the stock market. It's kind of it's down now, and now it's sitting in our garage in a cardboard box. I won't let her live it down. Everybody had their best Beavis and Butthead impersonation. And Super Nintendo, the arcade went from a physical location into your living room. And particularly that game, Street Fighter II, pretty much assured that I wasn't focused on college. I'm going to be an enlisted guy. So, based off the quantifiable data I just presented to you, I give the world impacting events to the 90s, the music to the 80s, fashion to the 80s, sports to the 90s, and fads to the 80s. So if you're playing along at home, the winner is the 80s.